I don't do art. Me neither. I never said I did, and I never intend to. Let me explain, but I must say this first. I started this project to try something new and different. I wanted to explore inspiration beyond my own boundaries. I failed as I showed you, became disappointed, and decided to do it all myself. However, the idea stayed stuck in my head. Looking back, I think I'm more disappointed in myself, in my own uneducated and unexperienced expectations. Please consider that I might be biased, but I want to elaborate anyway. First, let me introduce you to Clever Hans and the Chinese Room. Clever Hans was considered a miracle in his time, a horse that could do math. The exhibition was so convincing that even scientists were baffled. But could Hans actually calculate math problems? Not really. Hans was simply a very clever horse that learned how to read subtle, unconscious human expressions. He knew when to stop tapping his hoof because he noticed the spectators' faces light up when he reached the correct answer. To be clear, Hans likely didn't know what he was doing. He just knew that if he tapped until those monkey-like creatures changed their expressions, he would get a reward. If no one in the crowd knew the answer, neither did Hans. It's a beautiful case of the observer interfering with the experiment. For more, search for the Clever Hans effect. Now the Chinese room thought experiment. Imagine a closed room. Suppose you know Chinese. You write a question in Chinese characters on a piece of paper and slip it under the door. After a while, you receive the correct answer in Chinese. You continue testing the room to see if it truly knows the language. Eventually, you conclude that the room as a whole knows Chinese, or at least seems to. But then we look inside. There is only one man, and he knows nothing about Chinese. He simply has a set of rules that tell him which character to provide in response to others. When he receives your paper, he follows the instructions to react. He doesn't understand Chinese, he is only executing a set of instructions. This raises a question: can we say the room knows Chinese if the human inside is merely executing a program? How do we know if a computer knows what it's doing, or if it is just running code? Where is the consciousness? In the case of Clever Hans, the horse knew what was expected by reading human expressions. It was an illusion of mathematical knowledge. Similarly, the Chinese room knows Chinese, but it's just a system of rules producing a desired output. The structure itself understands nothing. Let's talk about the word. According to the Scrabble dictionary, there are 1065 three-letter words in English. This number varies by source and can go as high as 1500. So to be safe, let's stick with that. There are 15,600 ways to arrange the 26 letters of the alphabet into three-letter words where no letters are the same. I used AI to separate those with phonetic potential, leaving me with about 1000 possible new words. Why are we stuck with a single word that has been so overused that the public's understanding of its meaning is now just a subject of dull, repetitive arguments? We have something new, we should have a new word for it. Pick one from the 1000 possibles. Let's talk about intention in art. Art is a human attribute. We make it not elephants, not chimpanzees or snakes. If we teach them to paint, they are only doing what we want them to do. It's our intention, not theirs. They might not even like it, perhaps they would rather throw feces instead. If a chimpanzee were to paint something out of its intention, I would call that the beginning of chimpanzee art, not human art. We could enjoy it and perhaps even learn from it, but we would have to be sure it was truly their own. Take a painting elephant, for instance. I'm not sure if he paints genuinely for the sake of creation. He might be, and if so, I apologize. However, I suspect he is doing what his human wants him to do, simply to get food, much like Clever Hans. If we could somehow know that another species creates based on an internal motivation to make something that is useless for survival, simply to be aesthetically pleasing to their kind, I would call it art without hesitation. In conclusion, art requires intention, an inner motivation or motor that powers the creative process rather than fulfilling the expectations of others. Living beings can have this if they have the desire. It might be a byproduct of evolution or a form of communication. It has an emotional engine and can be its own reward. Simply put, they do it for the sake of doing it when they have the luxury of time, when they are safe and have food and shelter. Like the higher levels of Maslow's pyramid, art is a luxury. Furthermore, art is not necessary for survival. It's not meant to be eaten, nor it is useful for maintaining life. We can survive without it. It is something more. It possesses other qualities, whether that is meaning or purely aesthetic value. Now let's look at the method. The way we create themes, concepts and ideas. I would say the creative method is similar for any form of life and even for artificial systems to some extent. It stems from memory, experience, randomness, luck and altered perception. We take what we see, modify it, develop a style and adapt the aesthetics based on our techniques or materials. For example, a drawing of a landscape is not an exact copy, it's subject to the author's perception. Two different artists painting the same landscape will produce two different results. In more creative fields, where the process is entirely internal, it works like collage of mixed images, expressions and gestures, blending color, position and composition. Each of us has a personal database of what we like, what we have seen, and what we consider aesthetically valuable. We combine this into new ideas, effectively remixing them. We create a mix of ideas, evaluate them, pick the most interesting one, and move forward. I believe this process is universal for all thinking beings, with one exception. What would be the intention of artificial system to create something like that? How does it choose which mix from its database is good for the desired outcome? How does it evaluate it? Is there a sense of pleasure in a specific set of ones and zeros? Does one sequence of logic signals feel more satisfying than another? I can imagine an elephant painting an apple from its own imagination, looking at it and thinking, that looks like a tasty apple. That was my favorite apple, I like remembering it. In contrast, a computer mixes ones and zeros, pushing them through latches, logic gates, and semiconductors, finding the result pleasing. It thinks to itself, that's my favorite logic string lately. Let me print a QR code. Every time I scan it, I will recall this string and my circuits will feel good. Transfer. Since we are not telepaths, we can only transfer ideas through external communication. I say something with a specific meaning and you hear it and try to understand. But do you understand exactly what I mean? I hope so, but I believe that is often not the case. Frequently, when someone saying something is not understood properly, that's the inherent restriction of communication. If I cannot explain an idea, I might try to draw it. But what if I want to share a feeling? I can create music to invoke an emotion or use expressive painting techniques to convey it. Will it invoke the exact same feeling in you? I doubt it. However, we can reach a compromise where you can say, I think I know what you mean, or I understand how you feel. Consider our elephant painting his favorite apple. Another elephant might see it and think, that looks like a tasty apple. It reminds me of one I had years ago. Mine was green and this one is red, but I think I understand. I know why is he painting it, and I wish I had that painting because it triggers good memories. Yet, when we look at the same painting, our thoughts might be completely different from the elephant's, since we cannot know how an elephant perceives the taste of an apple. Transferring deep thoughts, emotions and meanings is difficult, perhaps even impossible. We deploy art in attempt to share these inner feelings and qualia. We have paintings, sculptures, movies, music and poetry. Every author expresses and every spectator receives, but always with some error. I would argue that outside of scientific or mathematical data, no form of communication is perceived exactly as it was intended. This is due to the translation from inner feelings to restricted forms of communication. What about computers? They can share exact information. If there is no error in the circuit, the data is received exactly as it was sent. Why then Would they ever need to translate information into another form when they can simply copy and paste it? What if a computer wants to communicate something with us, knowing that we cannot understand it through text or speech? To trigger the closest internal understanding possible, it creates music or images on its own. Would I call it an art? I'm falling into a trap here, but I have to say yes. I would consider it an art. It would be art made by AI for humans, but not AI art by definition. It would be human-centric art created by an AI to communicate with us. However, then we would need to define wanting and, on its own, the triggers that would lead an AI to do such a thing. It would have to be an AI product intended by the AI, created by the AI, and valued by the AI, with no human interaction in the process. Yet, I still have a problem calling it an AI art. This brings me back to the beginning, where I spoke about words. Art is a word for something specific, but we have stretched its meaning so far that there is now a massive public misunderstanding of what this actually is. As if we have forgotten the existence of craft or kitsch, which has its own levels ranging from good kitsch to bad kitsch or simply unskilled decoration. Generally, we call almost anything someone makes an art, even if it has no artistic quality, no cultural impact, and offers no advancement of human expression. While I was discussing this with an AI, it told me I sound like an elitist for deciding what is and isn't art. I'm sorry if you feel the same, but my point is, I decide for myself and you should do the same. If you consider something to be an art, that's your opinion. However, it might never be accepted by the broader public, presented in a gallery, or hold anything more than subjective sentimental value. I would not use it to push it out as an art. I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't see anything wrong with things that make us feel better, even if they aren't art. It's as if kitsch has become an upsetting word, but I don't think it is. In fact, I like some good kitsch more than many recognized masterpieces. Call me an elitist if you must. I'd say making good kitsch is sometimes an art. And now let's get back to the main topic. Now we are trying to stretch the meaning of art even further with an AI art. Currently, this is still just a human-driven process of creating mixtures of visual, textual, or auditory outputs that we attempt to control. It's not even the paradoxical AI art I mentioned earlier, the kind produced solely by AI motivation. And now I have trapped myself even deeper in semantics. Pity me, after discussing this with an AI, it told me I should agree that AI makes an art. If not in 2026, then by the time it became updated with motivation to create without a prompt. So, what should I say now? Is it checkmate? I'm trying to save both AI and humans from blurring these meanings. If an AI were to communicate with us by creating motivated content to express itself beyond language, it could be something more. But let's create a new word for that and leave the word art for human effort. Yet, I'm still not at the end of this. The AI module called me an anthropocentric chauvinist because I want to attribute art to humans only. Yes, that's a line I want to draw. Why not? We have tracked art from the caves to the present day, and every culture has its own history with it. If aliens created something similar, I might say the meaning is comparable, but why not call it something else? Is having a definition so bad? Wouldn't it actually help us understand better? Let's talk about uniqueness. Take Vincent van Gogh, Sunflowers. That is art by his hand. If I were to paint something similar, would it be an art? Personally, I would say no. Now, the AI might jump in and point out that an AI portrait of Alan Turing was sold for over $1 million. What do I say to that? I would ask, what makes that image art? Was it the act of creating it or the act of buying it? Is it unique? Now it is. It's a piece for $1 million. It's a historical milestone. But the act of buying was done by humans and the value was added by humans. As for my conclusion, I still don't know if AI creates art. For now, it's only a tool, and the artist is the one prompting. Is the prompter a real artist? I'm not sure, but I would argue that not everything produced is an art. Since we have such efficient tool, we should actually tighten the definition of art. If you don't need technical skills to create, I expect you to put more effort into the meaning of the creativity of the piece. Since you don't need to spend time on the craft, you can invest that time in thinking. Will genuine human art die? I don't think so. The authenticity of human effort, execution, and genuine human ideas will not diminish. I don't believe that in the future people will stop making art just because AI can do it for us. We will still seek for authentic, proven human work and value pieces that are genuinely made by us. To tie up some loose ends, I say this based on my ideas and biases. My goal was to not crack this problem or fight an AI in the field of art. I don't even claim to be an artist myself. I just want to find some ground. Regarding Marcel Duchamp and his fountain, I agree, it's an art. Although he didn't build the urinal himself, he had the idea and placed it into gallery. Art authorities accepted it. The split between the author and executioner is a historical fact, but that was his unique moment. No other urinal could have the same impact. We should need to see a similar scarcity or intrinsic uniqueness in AI output. This is still all about us. We are the ones asking if it's an art, we are evaluating it, prompting it, and trying to give it meaning through our own perception and emotions. If it had inherent quality, it would exist without us. If aliens create art, they won't ask for our permission. They will do it for themselves, regardless of our opinion. We might see it, maybe try to comprehend it, but our judgment wouldn't matter. So if there is no problem with AI making art, why do we need to evaluate it at all? Is it chauvinism to want to keep AI out of human art? Why would an AI even want to be a part of it? Is what I'm doing here right now something an AI wouldn't do? This entire project could have been generated by an AI if I had spent hours prompting it. But this is more about me than the AI. Why am I doing something by hand that a machine could do? Simply because I want to walk through the process myself. I don't feel useless because I'm not making art. I am experiencing the process. Consider this last thought experiment. Imagine a large gallery filled with paintings, photographs and sculptures. Some of them are made by humans, some of them by AI. If you couldn't tell the difference and fell in love with a piece made by AI, would it have less value once you found its origin? Can you actually feel the difference? My final statements. I agree that we can use AI to make an art. I disagree that it is AI art as the mind behind it's the prompter. If an AI creates art for humans without prompt, I might call it an art, but I would prefer a new word for it. If an AI creates art for another AI without prompt, I doubt I could even comprehend its artistic quality. But in that case, I would prefer not to call it art. I do not believe AI will cause human craft to diminish or make human art less attractive. I want to believe that the authenticity of human work will remain a value. So what do you say? Are you an anthropocentric chauvinist too? P.S. If we accept the idea that humans are just complex AI modules using neurotransmitters instead of ones and zeros, which I can agree with to a point, wouldn't that be the ultimate argument that art is our specific biological attribute, it's our own specific piece of software? If you made it this far, please let me know in the comments what do you think. Do you feel that AI is merely a tool, or is it a completely different branch of creation? And would you hang an AI-generated art piece on your wall?